Man City, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid. These are teams that are always favorites in the Champions League. But in each season, there's an unexpected club that surprises everyone. A team that knocks out giants going further than anyone ever imagined. So in this video, we'll see what was the biggest underdog of each Champions League. It's one crazier than the other. Also, we're gonna be ranking each underdog based on their final standings. Starting with the 2019-20 season, when a team that no one would ever imagine reached the semi-finals. Well, in the group stage, there was a group where anyone could qualify. Benfica, Leipzig, Zenit and Lyon. So it was really tight, with Leipzig finishing first place and Lyon second. Lyon had only won 2 group stage matches and even had their manager sacked because of the poor campaign in the French league. Then when it came to the round of 16 draw,
Juventus.
Lyon was gonna face Juventus, the reigning Italian champions with none other than Ronaldo. Everyone expected an Italian win in the first leg. But then Lyon scored the opener, so Juventus pushed forward, but the defense was solid. In a surprising way, Lyon won the first leg. But after that, the Champions League had a month-long pause. Because of everything that happened that year, the second leg would only take place 5 months later. So they went to Italy, where in an empty stadium, Juventus only needed 1 goal to equalize. But Lyon surprised everyone once again.
Awar goes through and wins a penalty. Depay executes with extraordinary composure.
Lyon scored another goal. Now, under the away goals rule, Juventus needed to score 3 goals to turn it around. So Ronaldo stepped up.
As so often before, must deliver. Ronaldo does deliver. Of course, this guy, who's had a wonderful hit.
But after those 2 goals, Juventus couldn't score the third. So because of the away goals rule, Lyon advanced to the quarterfinals. A truly shocking result. But even crazier was the following match. So surprisingly, Lyon was in the quarterfinals. That was gonna be played in a single match. But if Juventus was tough, now they were up against one of the big favorites, Man City. Guardiola's Man City with Gabriel Jesus, De Bruyne, Sterling, Walker was just 2 games away from their first ever Champions League final. Actually, everyone was waiting to see Man City versus Bayern Munich in the semi-finals. But Rudi Garcia's Lyon with Depay, Bruno Guimarães, Cornet and others started by surprising the fans again.
Ikambi is onside, the flag didn't go up, then the shot, oh it's in! Lyon have taken the lead!
1-0, Lyon was in front. But in the second half, City went all in until they managed to equalize, 1-1. Now it seemed Lyon was gonna be eliminated, but then...
Offside. Dembele might not be. Dembele shot. Ederson got something on it, but not enough on it.
2-1. Now City desperately needed a score, so they pushed forward and in the 85th minute...
Gliding through, pulling it back. Oh, he's missed it! I cannot believe it!
One of the most unbelievable misses. It should have been the equalizer. And if you don't score, you get scored on.
Ederson down, oh he spilled it! Oh, it's in again! It's Dembele again!
By 3-1, Lyon did the impossible, eliminated Man City. Lyon was in the semi-final. Who would have imagined? Now the opponent was the mighty Bayern Munich. But Lyon almost surprised everyone again.
Middle to Memphis Depay, look where Manuel Neuer is and he's still going here!
But after this strong start, they couldn't hold Bayern's attack. So the Germans made it 3-0. Lyon, that finished the French league in 7th place, managed to be among the best 4 in Europe. A huge underdog. So in our ranking, Lyon is on top. Let's see how it's gonna finish. But that's just the first campaign of the video. We'll see the biggest underdog of each season. Now if Lyon had manager changes, in the following season there was another underdog that sacked their coach. In the 2020-21 season, the biggest favorites were Man City and Bayern Munich, along with PSG and others. One team that absolutely wasn't a favorite was Chelsea. Yes, they made it to the round of 16, but they were in a bad situation. In January, 1 month prior to the round of 16, they were 9th place in the Premier League. So they sacked their coach Lampard to hire Thomas Tuchel. You cannot expect much from a team that has manager changes like that. After all, the new coach has to put everything in place. Now the opponent in the round of 16 was very tough. The future Spanish champions of that season, Atletico Madrid. So they went for the first match, where it was a game with few chances for both sides, until Giroud did this.
Mount was trying to get there. Giroud! Oh yes!
By 1-0, Chelsea won the first leg. Then when they got to London,
It's a good run by Havertz, onto Werner. Ziyech making the run through the middle. Werner on the move for Chelsea. Hakim Ziyech, there's the goal they wanted. Plays it on now to Emerson. Wow, what an introduction that is.
by 3-0 in aggregate, Chelsea eliminated Atletico Madrid. Now they were in the quarterfinals for the first time since 2014, with the next opponent being FC Porto. Porto was no easy task. They had just eliminated Ronaldo's Juventus. Porto could be the biggest underdog, but Chelsea ended their dream.
It's a lovely turn by Mason Mount, and that's the goal that Chelsea wanted. Here's Ben Chilwell, he's in. Can Chilwell get the goal? He's around the goalkeeper and he walks it in.
Chelsea won the first leg 2-0, so they went into the second match without taking much risks. Then Porto even managed to pull one back, but they didn't equalize. Chelsea advanced to the semi-finals. This was already something no one imagined, but now the challenge was gonna be much bigger. They were gonna face none other than Real Madrid. Modric, Kroos, Benzema, Casemiro and others managed by Zidane, all multiple Champions League winners. But before Madrid could show their strength, Pulisic stepped up.
Pulisic in behind and the flag stays down for now. Werner's up there with him. It's Christian Pulisic. He's away from Courtois. He scores!
Now Chelsea was leading, but soon the future Ballon d'Or winner showed up.
It's Benzema's chance and there's the equaliser. Smashed in by Karim Benzema.
1-1. After that, no one created much danger, so the first leg ended like that. Now for the second leg, Real Madrid needed to push forward to turn it around. But at Stamford Bridge, it was the Blues who dominated the attacks. So right after, this allowed goal by Timo Werner.
Promising for Chelsea. Kai Havertz is in. Oh, that's the bar. And there's the follow-up, and this time it does count.
Chelsea played better, creating better chances, so Real Madrid couldn't equalize. Then in the 85th minute, the English side delivered the final blow.
It's Christian Pulisic. And finally it's in.
By 3-1 in aggregate, Chelsea eliminated the most successful Champions League club. What a huge achievement. But there was still one more opponent, Guardiola's Man City, where Chelsea did it again.
Chilwell to Mount. Havertz in a pocket of space. Ederson came and didn't get there. Chance for Chelsea. Goal for Chelsea. Kai Havertz in the Champions League final.
After that, City had much more ball possession, but they couldn't create many chances. So the referee blew the final whistle. By 1-0, Chelsea became Champions League winners. A team that had their manager sacked, being mid-table in the Premier League, won the biggest European title. Literally the only title Chelsea won that season. A huge underdog. So in our underdog rankings, Chelsea's at the top. But if Chelsea was surprising, no one could have imagined the club that reached the semi-finals of the following season. Well, in Group E, there was Man United with Ronaldo, Atalanta, Young Boys and Villarreal. Villarreal was the current Europa League winner, but that didn't mean they were anywhere close to being one of the favorites. They had even finished 7th in La Liga. To give you an idea, their city, also called Villarreal in Spain, has only 50,000 people. They were managed by Unai Emery with players such as Moreno, Danjuma, Estupiñán, Chukwueze, etc. Also, the group stage was very difficult. They only qualified for the round of 16 after finishing the group in 2nd place. But if the group stage was tough, the round of 16 was gonna be much more difficult.
Juventus.
Villarreal was drawn with none other than Juventus. So in the first leg in Spain, Villarreal had to do everything to not concede any goals. But in just 32 seconds...
Bit of a misunderstanding in midfield. They're looking for that early ball in behind here. Vlahovic, what a start for him! Champions League debut!
In just 30 seconds, Juventus took the lead. If they already were the favorites to advance, now they were even more. But then in the second half, Villarreal equalized, leaving their stadium with nothing yet decided. Now they had to win at the Allianz Stadium. So in Juventus Stadium, Villarreal was the favorite to be eliminated. The Italians went all in. Villarreal's keeper Rulli had to make some amazing saves, with the ball even hitting the post. At any moment the score could be opened. until in the 74th minute,
Brazos en jarra de Gerard Moreno, ahí va hacia la pelota, el golpeo.
1-0 for Villarreal. And after that, Juve's defense literally collapsed.
Le pesa el reloj al Villarreal, la pone al área. Que nos queremos ir a casa contentos. Ahí va, Danjuma hacia la pelota, el golpeo.
3-0. Villarreal eliminated Juventus, already becoming a massive underdog. But maybe it was not as surprising as the quarterfinals was gonna be. Well, now that they had eliminated this giant, the quarterfinals draw took place. But again, Villarreal was unlucky. They were drawn with literally one of the biggest favorites, Bayern Munich. If you watched the heaviest defeat of each Champions League video, you already saw what Bayern was capable of. In the round of 16, they faced Salzburg and literally destroyed them 7-1. Lewandowski, Gnabry, Müller, Neuer. Facing these players, Villarreal was doomed to be eliminated. But in just a few minutes, they surprised Bayern.
Línea de fondo, la pelota con el exterior atrás. El remate, gol.
Goal for Villarreal. But now the challenge was to hold Bayern's attack. So Paul Torres and Albiol did an incredible job, not letting Bayern find the net. So Villarreal won the first leg 1-0, already a huge victory. But they couldn't celebrate too much. For comparison, before Salzburg was humiliated 7-1 at the Allianz Arena, they had drawn the first game at home. So at the Allianz Arena, Bayern went all in. Until the 52nd minute, they finally found a way through.
Lewandowski está muy adelantado y al final no puede evitar.
Bayern got the goal, they won it, so they kept pushing forward. But what they didn't expect was a counter-attack from Villarreal in the 87th minute.
Por Kingsley Coman, la pelota en Lo Celso. Gerard Moreno que no tiene velocidad pero tiene visión. El remate, su fuerte gol. Marca su fuerte gol.
Villarreal scored in their only shot on target. So Villarreal did what seemed impossible, eliminated Bayern Munich. They pulled off one of the most surprising victories in history. Who would have imagined? Now after eliminating Juventus and Bayern, Villarreal had the confidence that they could reach the final, so they went to face their next opponent, Liverpool. If Villarreal defeated the Reds, they would definitely reach the final as the favorites. But at Anfield, the story was different. Liverpool won 2-0. For many, Villarreal was already eliminated. But in the second leg,
Estepini and the left back with an interesting ball. It's a good chance, it's a goal. Robertson, the Liverpool defender. It's an interesting ball and it's a good chance, it's 2-0.
they equalized in the first half. Now they had an entire second half ahead of them. But Liverpool crashed the party.
Free up there with him and he squeezes it through the leg. It's a really good ball, it's a free header, it's in. He's got a wide open goal. And Liverpool are heading to Paris for the Champions League final.
Liverpool scored 3 goals, taking the aggregate to 5-2. So after a gigantic campaign, Villarreal was eliminated. They reached the semi-finals, becoming the biggest underdog of that season. Now in the rankings, they are alongside Lyon. So after Villarreal, let's go to the 2022-23 season, where the biggest underdog was a team that hadn't had a good European campaign in over a decade. It was a team that had been eliminated in the group stage 3 times in a row, and in the previous Champions League was knocked out in the round of 16, but this time became one of the strongest in Europe. So in the 2022-23 season, there was a group of death with Bayern Munich, Barcelona and Inter Milan. Inter had a good team managed by Inzaghi, with players such as Lautaro Martinez, Dzeko, Çalhanoğlu, Barella, Onana, etc. But the last time Inter had even reached the quarterfinals was literally 12 years ago. Also, the group stage started in the worst way possible.
One that's going to lead to the opening goal surely for Sané.
What a goal.
Sané, nicely worked. Brilliantly worked, Sané, can he squeeze it in?
what a goal.
It's ended up in the net.
They lost 2-0 at home, but then they managed to recover, not losing to the other teams of the group. So they finished the group in 2nd place. Now they qualified, but the round of 16 was usually a stage they couldn't get past. And now the opponent was Porto, the current Portuguese champion. It was a very tough match, with many chances for both sides. Anyone could score the opener, until the 86th minute.
Barella. Lukaku! At last!
1-0 for Inter. Then they went to the second leg and Porto went all in. They had everything to equalize with way more shots and ball possession, but nothing got past Onana. So by just 1-0, Inter did what they hadn't done in 12 years, reached the quarterfinals. Now the next opponent was another Portuguese team, Benfica, that was gonna do everything to qualify. But at the Estádio da Luz in Portugal, Benfica couldn't get past the defense. Meanwhile, Inter was much more decisive.
Oh, really good ball! And it's in! It's Barella who scores for Inter!
Inter left the first leg with a huge advantage. So in the second leg, they just had to confirm the victory.
Can he get the shot off? He can! And he scored brilliantly!
Then Benfica scored theirs, but in the second half, Inter extended it even further. In the end, Benfica scored 2 more, finishing the aggregate 5-3. Now in the semis, their opponent was another team that could also be considered an underdog, their rivals Milan. It was the Milan derby to decide the finalist. Inter could not underestimate Milan. They were the current Italian champions and the second most successful Champions League club. Then in just 10 minutes...
Here he goes towards Dzeko! It's Mkhitaryan, it's 2-0! Wonderful goal from Inter Milan!
2 goals to give Inter a big advantage. Then with Bastoni and Acerbi's super solid defense, Milan couldn't close the gap. So for the second leg, Milan had to go all in. But again, the defense was very solid, with the defenders not letting anything through. So they just confirmed their victory.
Might kill it once and for all. Martinez does it, delivers it, and surely on their way now.
Inter made it 3-0 on aggregate, so they advanced to the Champions League final. Who would have imagined Inter Milan in the final? One more victory and they would become European champions in a totally unexpected way. But the opponent was Guardiola's Man City, the favorites to win. But Inter didn't back down, having some great chances. But in the second half...
Tight angle, pulls it back, coming onto it now to shoot, score! Rodri!
1-0 for City, so Inter pushed forward.
He's coming in, gets it, oh what a save!
Save goal!
What a save!
With huge saves from Ederson, Inter couldn't equalize. So by just 1-0, City won. Inter went from being defeated 2-0 at home in the first match of the season to becoming European runner-up. No one would ever imagine they getting this far. Now in our rankings, they are now in second place, only behind Chelsea. So another team that we would never imagine getting as far as they got was the underdog of the following season. That was a team that, before the season started, had even lower chances of winning the title than Newcastle. In the odds rankings at betting houses, this team was behind Inter Milan, AC Milan and 10 others. But they went further than anyone expected. Also, this team started with a huge challenge, as they were placed in a group with PSG, Newcastle and Milan. Borussia Dortmund. Yes, they were far from being favorites. Actually, in this same season, Dortmund finished the Bundesliga in 5th place. Also, in the previous season, they failed to win any titles. On top of that, they had the bad luck of being in the group of death. That started in the worst way possible.
Under Kerbal into the corner. It's a great reverse to him. Hakimi superb. Achraf Hakimi.
But after that, Dortmund bounced back. They didn't lose again and finished 1st place. So they advanced to the round of 16, where they faced PSV. PSV would be the Dutch champions that season, so it was gonna be a tough opponent. But it was a Dutch player from Dortmund who scored the opener.
Going on the outside, Marlon. He kept going. He scores.
After that, PSV almost equalized, but they only managed to score in the second half from a penalty. The first leg ended 1-1. Anything could happen in the second leg. So in the second match, Dortmund didn't waste any time, scoring in the first minutes. Then after PSV wasted their opportunities, Dortmund sealed the deal with Marco Reus. 3-1 on aggregate and Dortmund was in the quarterfinals. But now it was gonna be even tougher. The next opponent was Atletico Madrid, and that seemed the end of Dortmund's campaign.
Well, that's a poor ball away. Griezmann jogged to it, and so was Deport. Little flick ball, big chance for 2. It is 2.
2-0 to Atletico. They started dominating, but in the end, Dortmund grew into the game and pulled one back with Haller. So the first leg ended 2-1. A very important advantage for Atletico Madrid. But in Germany, Dortmund completely changed the scenario.
That's another great pass into Brandt. It's gone in! Julian Brandt runs away to celebrate! And again the build-up's brilliant. Madsen goes for it. Oh, what a goal that is!
Dortmund turned the aggregate to 3-2. But in the second half, Simeone's team repeated the feat.
It's found its way in and it's an own goal! Great stop by Kerbal. Correa again and again!
They turned it around again. Atletico had everything to qualify, just needed to hold the score. But Dortmund didn't give up.
Atletico's overall defensive form, not quite what it was, and there's the proof of it! Füllkrug has done it! And Brandt again, and Füllkrug again, and now Marcel Sabitzer onto his left!
With 2 goals in a matter of minutes, Dortmund took the aggregates to 5-4. What a crazy match! Dortmund reached the semi-final for the first time since 2013. After losing the first group stage match to PSG, no one would have imagined they'd get this far. But now their next opponent was, guess who? PSG. In the group stage, they faced each other twice, but Dortmund didn't win any match. Actually, Dortmund didn't defeat PSG since 2020. But when they arrived in Germany, Dortmund's defense was very solid. So in the 36th minute,
Behind, and he's managed to do it. He took it well and shoots. Oh, what a goal!
1-0. Now everything would be decided at Parc des Princes, where PSG went all in.
Mbappe! And then coming in is Zaire is in the outside of the post.
Paris missed a clear chance, but Dortmund was much more precise.
Hummel's jumping, it's in!
Now it was 2-0, but Paris didn't give up. However, they only found a post.
Nuno Mendes hits the post again! Put back square, Mbappe's in the bar! He shoots, now he's hit the bar!
So after 30 shots, Paris didn't score again. In the season, no one took them as favorites. Borussia Dortmund reached the European final. Now the final was against Real Madrid. But Madrid hadn't lost a Champions League final since 1981, so it was gonna be a real challenge. But Dortmund almost did the impossible again. However, they missed their chances, and by the second half, Real Madrid didn't waste their opportunities. With Carvajal and Vini Junior, they won 2-0. In the same season, Dortmund finished 5th in the Bundesliga. They reached the final of the world's biggest club competition, becoming the biggest underdog of the 2023-24 Champions League. So, did you like this video? Check out this other one that I posted. I think you're gonna like it. So, thank you and bye!